Massive changes to EPCs are coming in 2025. But what does it mean? How's it going to impact you? And what's it going to cost you? That's exactly what I'm going to be covering in today's video. So an EPC is an energy performance certificate, and what it shows is not only the square footage or square meterage of the property, which is helpful, but it also shows the energy efficiency of a property, and this is based on its ability to warm up the property and naturally how much energy it keeps within the property. And this is all an initiative that the government's bringing in to protect the country and the world ultimately from climate change. So that's the whole initiative behind it. Now, these changes are made from high up, and I honestly think without much thought of the actual housing stock. And what we're looking at is almost a third of the property market being dramatically impacted by this. And by the way, all of us as landlords are going to be affected by this because it's a legal requirement for selling or renting out a property. Before you get it sold, you need an EPC. So a recent survey was done on this to say that a third of the available rental properties in the UK will not meet the standards going from an E to a C. Think about how crazy that is. So let me put this into real figures. There's around 25 to 26 million properties in the UK right now, around 21% of which are private rentals, 19% of which are social. So let's ignore social, which the council are going to have to deal with on their own. Private rentals, 21%. Let's call that 5 million. It's actually more than that, but 5 million properties. And the survey showed that a third of those, that's 1.66 million properties, will be directly impacted on this, with an average cost across the board of £4,000 per property. That is absolutely crazy. So what this shows for me is how out of focus or out of touch the government is right now. And all I'm thinking is how lucky we are that it's not an A or a B, which only represents around 2% of the UK with regards to energy performance certificate ratings. Now, actually, it's not moving from a D to a C that's actually the issue. For a majority of the average properties out there, that's probably only going to cost £1,000, and whilst I don't want to spend that, it's just not that big of a deal. The real issue comes with the type of property. So where I invest, this doesn't really matter because it's not going to impact me or my investors dramatically. But if you're watching and a lot of your properties represent the old Victorian properties, you know, these huge 3-story properties that almost definitely won't be a C on the EPC, those cost a hell of a lot, with an average predicted value or cost of £8,500. Now imagine you've got a portfolio of 20 properties, that's going to be £170,000. Now most landlords don't have that lying in their pocket, okay? They're living off the cash flow for their pension or something like that, and £170,000 bill. What about the fact you're going to have to kick out the tenants or rehouse them in order to do those works? I just don't think the government has, one, thought about the practicalities of that, and also the actual impact of that happening. Definitely something to consider if you've got one of those properties, because energy performance just was not a thing when those properties were built. So will this actually become a reality? And if so, what's going to be the impact of this? So first of all, yes, I think this will become a reality, at least in theory. And what I mean by that is, this is more than just talk. This is an initiative that has been put out there for the government and the country to be accountable to. And so it's more than just talk. This is rolling out by 2025. In theory, what I mean by that is, if you think about the 1.66 million that's out there, let's call it 1.5 million to make it possible, that's directly going to be impacted by that. Even if we've got a couple of £1,000, some of the bigger properties are up to £8,500, that's going to mean that for a majority, at least half of those, tenants are going to be kicked out. So there's not enough houses for them in the first place. What's going to happen there? And also, if we average the cost at £4,000 per property, what's the reality of landlords actually implementing that each time there's a changeover? I don't know, because you need to think about the practicalities. What if they don't have the money? Does it just become a vacant property? How many landlords are not going to be able to afford that? So I think The commercial reality of this is, number one, they're going to have to fund enforcement. It's like tax and HMRC. How many people are actually there to make sure people are following the rules? Like new licensing with buy-to-let. How many officers for the whole of West Yorkshire? I think there's now 2 officers to make sure people have got their licensing in place. That's only for buy-to-lets. It's crazy to think that's going to get implemented. So they need to fund that. But also, I think for this to become a reality, it needs to take the pressure off of the landlords, else it will drive up rents even further because the cost has to come from somewhere and be recuperated. And the reality is you'll be sat with a load of vacant properties. From my calculations, factoring in 1.5 million properties at an average of £4,000 per property, that is not including any costs of helping the tenant move temporarily. I think the government is going to have to come up with a £6 billion grant or interest-free loan or something like that to help support this initiative move forward. I really like Stoic philosophy in that I look at controllables and uncontrollables. What can I actually control about this situation? Well, I can control the stock that I'm taking on. I can look ahead a bit more and think, well, what's the EPC rating now? And if it does come in, how much is it going to cost to change it? But otherwise, it's really not going to dramatically impact me. Now, obviously, I'm biased because I'm looking at this as if it's for me and my clients and my selfish needs. They're not really impacted the types of properties we're buying. However, if I had a big portfolio of old Victorian properties that are going to cost significantly more to get those changes done, then damn right I'm going to be thinking about that a lot more. And my recommendation to you, if you've got these properties, is to get an EPC certified surveyor out there. It won't cost a lot to get a new EPC and get a suggestion of how much it would likely cost to bring it up to C standards. Do you need to do something about it now? No, but if it's a staggering amount, you might think about exiting that property, and you might want to be more careful about the properties you're taking on now. Maybe you don't take on the E's and F's. It's going to have a dramatic impact to get it up to a C. So that's it really. There's no need to panic or be dramatic about something that we really cannot control. Be pragmatic about it. Look at your portfolio. Are there any big outliers that maybe you need to proactively attack? If there are, deal with it. If there's not, just be pragmatic about what you're taking into your portfolio right now and pay more attention to the EPC. And if you got value from this video, I'd really appreciate a little like on your way out. Let me know what you thought of this in the comments, or if there's anything I missed out in particular. And if you want to find out more about property investment and making money from property, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.